The more women you sleep with, the more numb you become to them. And ironically, that numbness can make you more attractive, because when you stop caring, you stop chasing. When you stop chasing, you appear calm. When you appear calm, you become magnetic. And that's how the loop begins. At first, it feels like a win. You're not anxious anymore. You're not overthinking texts. You're not scared she'll leave. You're not afraid of being single. You've got options, and options create confidence. But here's the part nobody talks about. The confidence doesn't come from growth. It comes from desensitization. The more repetitions you clock in that player loop, the less emotionally invested you become. You start treating connection like a numbers game. You stop attaching meaning to moments. And because you don't care as much, you ironically get even more attention. Women sense the detachment. They feel the emotional independence, and some interpret it as strength. So you get laid more. And because you get laid more, you care even less. That's the loop. On the surface, it doesn't seem that bad. You're free. You're not stressed about losing anyone. You're not panicking when someone pulls away. You don't fear rejection the way you used to. There's power in that. But it's a freedom that isn't actually free. Because the more detached you become, the harder it is to emotionally connect when someone genuinely valuable comes along. You've trained your brain to treat intimacy as temporary. You've conditioned yourself to stay slightly distant, slightly guarded, slightly uninvested, even when you don't mean to. After a while, you start noticing patterns. You've heard the same compliments, the same tone, the same, "you're different," the same, "I've never felt this way before." 30 different women might have looked at you with the same soft eyes and told you how much you mean to them using almost identical words. And at first, it felt powerful. But now, it just doesn't hit the same. Instead of feeling special, it feels scripted. Instead of feeling intimate, it feels familiar. And familiarity kills mystery. You begin thinking, you don't even like me. You just like how I make you feel right now. Maybe that's true. Maybe it's not. But once that thought plants itself in your head, it's hard to remove, because repetition makes everything predictable. And predictability makes everything less romantic. Here's what exposure really does. It sharpens your pattern recognition. You notice when someone mirrors you. You notice when affection escalates too quickly. You notice when attachment feels situational. You become observant. But there's a downside. When you see too many patterns, you stop letting yourself experience moments as unique. You analyze instead of feel. You assess instead of immerse. Romance starts to feel like a formula. You start anticipating the rise and fall before it even happens. And when you expect something to end, you subconsciously prevent it from deepening. The real danger of the loop isn't sleeping with a lot of women. It's emotional erosion. You don't realize it's happening. You think you're just mature. You think you're just experienced. You think you've simply seen it all. But what you might actually be experiencing is emotional fatigue. When someone genuinely aligned comes into your life, someone stable, sincere, grounded, you struggle. Not because they're not enough, but because you've trained yourself not to attach. You've practiced detachment so much that attachment feels unsafe. You've mastered calmness but forgotten vulnerability. And without vulnerability, connection stays surface level. So here's the real question. Are you detached because you're secure? Or are you detached because you're numb? There's a difference. Secure men can connect deeply without fear of loss. Numb men avoid connecting deeply to avoid feeling loss. Both look calm on the outside, but internally, they're completely different. One chooses presence, the other chooses protection. There's nothing inherently wrong with having options. There's nothing wrong with enjoying your freedom. But understand this. Every pattern you repeat is wiring your emotional future. If you constantly practice detachment, you'll become good at it. If you constantly treat intimacy as temporary, your mind will assume it always is. And one day, when something real finally appears, you might not be able to feel it fully. Not because it isn't special, but because you trained yourself not to believe anything is, and that's the hidden cost of the loop. If this made you think, then you're already ahead of it.
Press subscribe if you think you can handle more epic content. Dare accepted.